everyone. This is Steve Weintraub. I'm editor-in-chief of the website Collider, and I am super, super happy to have Joe and Anthony Russo with me for our CCXP Worlds panel. Gentlemen, how are you both doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
So good to see you.
I am doing great. Listen, I know we have a limited amount of time, and I want to jump right on in. You guys obviously have a production company. You are essentially studio heads with Agbo, and we have so many different things to talk about. But I want to start with sort of quick updates on a number of different things. Just a little while ago, I think even a few days ago, it was announced that you guys were going to be doing Saigon Bodyguards with Chris Pratt and Chinese superstar Wu Jing. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Can you sort of talk about how did that project come together?
Sure. We've been looking for something to do with Chris for a while. Obviously, we're very close to him from the work that we did over the last few years with Marvel. And Wu Jing, we are close to because of the Wolf Warrior 2 that we helped him out on. And he and Chris knew each other, and we're looking for a project together. And we thought this would be a good pairing of their chemistry, the right kind of story to tell. We want to do a big, fun genre action thriller.
Can you discuss or reveal where you are in the development process on this?
Super early. I mean, we literally are just nascent script stage.
Got it. Let's move on to the next thing. You guys are doing a Hercules remake. What's the status of that movie?
Good. We have an incredible writer on it, Dave Callahan, and he's off on script. We should be seeing something in the next week or two, I think.
I think you've talked about this, but will there be songs? What can you tease about your remake?
We're keeping it all under wraps for now. We'll we want the audience to have some discoveries about what's fresh about our take.
To be fair, we're still in the process of finding it. These are projects that are in the early days, and there's a long road of sort of creative experimentation that goes on before we really know what the movie is.
So something else you guys have been working on is Citadel. What can you say about this project? And let me stop there.
Yeah, Citadel's about 2 months away from the camera. The scripts are incredible, cast amazing. We're really happy with that show, and it's an experimental, world that we're creating here, where we're going to be doing a massive flagship show and then some smaller regional shows built around the flagship show, and they're going to be foreign language, shot by local new talent that we discover and support. And so we're really excited about Citadel and its prospects for what it can do for, transmedia concepts and shaping the way that people view content in the future and consume stories, which is always exciting to us.
I was just going to add about Citadel that it's a very ambitious project. I don't know that anything like it has been attempted yet. With television, we give Amazon a lot of credit for wanting to be partners in a grand sort of narrative experiment like this, where we're telling a very interwoven global narrative that involves several concurrent series running at the same time, and it's something we're extremely excited about. It's always fun to be attempting something on a storytelling level that's never been done before, and I think Citadel falls in that category.
For people that aren't familiar with it, can you give like a log line or what is it about a little bit more specifically?
Yeah, it's a new world spy thriller, and with a very strong high concept at the center of it. It's a fascinating character study at the same time as it's a massive canvas, action story. So it's a really unique universe and a really unique collection of characters. We're really excited to share it.
I heard about Exit West. I don't know if you guys are still doing it, but so are you guys still working on Exit West?
Yes, we're still working on it. We are developing it's a favorite book of ours, and we are Barack and Michelle Obama are also sort of producing the movie with us, and we're in script phase again with that movie. Early phase, but we're very excited about it. It's an incredible novel, and we're very excited about how we translate that to film.
It has a crazy log line. What that book is about. For people that aren't familiar, what can you say?
I was going to say it's a love story set within the sort of global refugee world that has an element of magical realism to it that takes us into a whole new experience, a whole new understanding of that crisis. And it's a really beautiful, inspiring story that, we couldn't be more excited about. And I think it couldn't be more relevant to like the experience that we're all going through today.
You guys are also developing a Cambridge Analytica movie. Where is that in the development spectrum?
Marcus and McFeely wrote an incredible script. I think it's the best script they've ever written. And we're just packaging that, putting an actor and a director on it and getting ready to go. It'll be interesting post the election. I think that there's going to be a lot of fascination with Cambridge Analytica. If you've seen the new Netflix documentary about social media, this is a world that we've opened a Pandora's box, and it's going to be interesting to see if we can close it or contain it. And otherwise, I think the internet may have a field day with our brains.
Obviously, everyone watching loves your work on the Marvel movies, and that's you did such a fantastic job. I'm curious. Obviously, Marvel is always going to hire new directors to helm future projects. There's so many different people working on them. For someone helming their first MCU movie, joining the fold, if you will, what advice might you share about your experiences working on these movies that you'd sort of pass on to someone else?
Look, our experience with Marvel was we couldn't have better partners. They're incredibly collaborative. They are they push you in all the best ways. I mean, Marvel is never happier than when you sort of think to the table that they weren't already thinking of. And that's when they get most excited. So I would just say, dig deep on sort of what inspires you about the story you want to tell and sort of swing for the fences with it. There's no better partner out there to support you in terms of your biggest dreams and biggest aspirations in terms of what you want to do cinematically. So it's, I'd say just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, as Ant said, the greatest group of people you can ever hope to work with. And bring a strong point of view to the movie. And what do it's a collective artwork, and what are you bringing to it that can change it or shift it in a new direction or excite people or surprise people? What identity and singular identity can you bring to it that adds to the mosaic that's the Marvel Universe?
You guys, during the pandemic, did something called, I want to say it right, Pizza Film School. And you did weekly episodes with on some of these classic movies. But for me, I think you guys had Mark Hamill talking about Empire Strikes Back. Obviously, you've worked with some of the biggest movie stars, and you've had this amazing career. How much are you still, when you have Mark Hamill on and you're talking to him about Empire Strikes Back, do you sort of forget about all your success and just become little kids again? Or, you know what I mean?
100%. I always say that 100%. We've met so many actors over our career that, the ones that always get you the most nervous are the ones that you idolize as children, because you associate those childlike emotions with that person. So whenever you meet somebody iconic like Mark Hamill, who's so influential on your childhood, it's a giddy moment. And that was, a lot of that was just Anthony and Marcus McFeely for 2 episodes, just staring at Mark Hamill in awe, listening to all the incredible stories he had to tell.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like Joe just described, and we could have listened to, like, Mark Hamill is, we would listen to him for the next 100 hours straight. I mean, it's any sort of aspect that he wants to relay about that experience that he had is sort of thrilling to us because it's so pregnant and so enormous. It's such a huge touch point in terms of our lives on every level, artistically, personally, etc. So yeah, it was a thrill, and he's an amazing storyteller. has an amazing memory, and it was a real thrill and a pleasure. Just I'll never forget that experience.
You guys produced 21 Bridges, and you worked very closely with Chadwick Boseman. Obviously, all of us are completely devastated at losing him at such a young age. I know that it affected the entire planet. Can you maybe share a little bit about what it was like working with him off camera, and maybe what made him such a special person?
Sure. Yeah. He's an incredibly dedicated actor. I mean, all the actors we work with, especially sort of throughout the MCU, you're dealing with actors who are at the top of their craft. And Chadwick is certainly there, but even among actors who are at the top of their craft, he stood out in his dedication to what he was doing and his commitment to what he was doing. He's a kind of actor, and you can see this through the various roles that he's played throughout his career. His level of commitment to the character, it consumes every layer of his being, and he really becomes the character in a very method way. And I'll never forget, this is a very simple detail, but early on, when we were shooting Civil War, which is his first performance as Black Panther, it was very difficult for us working with him to find the specific, for instance, African accent, the specific version of Africa that we were trying to sort of craft into the fictional Wakanda. And once he cracked that character and found that accent, he stayed in that accent through the entire shoot, even when he was off camera. He would only speak in that manner as T'Challa. And I think that just speaks to the fact of how deeply he had to build that character and how he had to hold on to that character throughout the entire process in order to be able to perform it. And I think it's just incredibly admirable when you find somebody who sort of puts that level of their being and their focus and their entire effort into what they're doing, and it translates to the screen. I mean, you feel something different when you watch him perform, not just as T'Challa, but in all the roles he did. So yeah, he was an incredible inspiration, incredible human being, just the height of professionalism and artistry. So so grateful for our time with him.
He had incredible integrity. He was a very thoughtful, artistic, elegant human being that was just a pleasure to be around and a pleasure to work with. And as Ant said, not only was he an actor, but he was a filmmaker. He understood filmmaking. He understood storytelling. And I think the thing that's most important to stress is, people who worked with him over the last 6 years on several projects, is that what he did and the way that he dealt with his illness was so brave and exemplified such integrity, because he put aside any sort of personal agenda for what he knew was a real moment in time, a real historical moment, in respect to what Black Panther meant to people. And I don't think he wanted his illness to become the story. He wanted Black Panther and this all-Black cast to be the story. And that's one of the bravest things that we've seen anyone do that we've dealt with on a personal level.
I'm going to switch subjects and say, first of all, thank you for talking about him. Really appreciate it. I want to jump into Mosul, which is a project that you guys produced. It is now streaming on Netflix, and it's fantastic. For people that are not familiar with Mosul, can you guys sort of talk about what it's about? And I just want to say, anyone who is now watching this, you should really watch Mosul. It's so effing well done. Sorry for my language, but if you guys, I'm not sure who wants to maybe give like a log line or a synopsis.
Mosul is a movie that we're extremely proud of. It was one of the very first things we did when we formed our new company, Agbo, was to put our energy and our resources behind making this film. Mosul is a story about a SWAT team in Mosul, Iraq, that was standing against ISIS during the occupation of the city. And it was a very driven and focused SWAT team it was composed of. It was based on an article that originally appeared in the New Yorker by Luke Mogelson, an amazing article. This journalist embedded himself with this SWAT team for 6 months and followed them around and wrote this amazing story about them. Now, this was a SWAT team. In order to be a member of this SWAT team, you either needed to have a family member killed by ISIS or you needed to have been physically wounded by ISIS. So it was a very focused, very driven group of people. And the film sort of follows their story in terms of like how they approach distangling ISIS from their lives after ISIS is in many ways destroyed and crushed their lives. And the movie is both written and directed by Matthew Carnahan. It's an amazing film. We're extremely proud of it. The movie's shot is cast with entirely Arabic actors. It's shot in the Arabic language. We tried to be extremely faithful to the Iraqi point of view in telling the story. And I think it's a movie unlike anyone's ever seen before, where you have the heroes, the protagonists of the story, are Middle Easterners in the midst of warfare in the Middle East. And it's very inspiring and very humanizing and an incredible thriller of a film.
One of the things with Agbo is that you give a lot of first-time feature directors their opportunity, their break. And so, Joe, what was it about Matthew? Because for people that aren't familiar with him, he's a brilliant screenwriter, but he's never directed a feature. And this is a very ambitious project, loaded with action. And as Anthony said, it's not in English. It's dealing with really hard subject matter. So talk a little bit about what was it that said, he can do this.
Yeah, I mean, Steven Soderbergh and George Clooney produced our first major feature. It's a movie called Welcome to Collinwood. They held the door open for us to get into the film business, and so we feel like we have a karmic debt to the university that for other people. And it's so hard to get a movie made. It requires such an enormous amount of lifeblood that you need an engine. You need a creative engine behind it who's going to get the car started and drive it up the hill. We reached out to Matt about writing the script. And he read the article, said he cried when he read it. He fell in love with the story. He wanted to tell a story about Middle Eastern protagonists. He is one of the best screenwriters in Hollywood. And we just knew that he had the creative vision to execute this. We put together a great Iraqi team of filmmakers and collaborators he worked very closely with. He subjugated his ego and brought in this team and they were there working alongside him in a very collaborative effort to bring this as authentically to the screen as possible. So we're always supportive of new energy, new voices, people who feel like they have something they want to say that they're passionate about saying. And we'd worked with Matthew on some other projects, including 21 Bridges. And so we knew him and trusted him. And we're more than happy to support him as a filmmaker.
Anthony, I'll ask this of you. I'm curious, with you guys at Agbo, how much are you going in early to the editing room and watching early cuts? And how much is it sort of like, can you sort of talk about your relationship as the studio heads, looking at the material that's being made and how does that all work?
Yeah, very much. I mean, look, the programming at Agbo, we're only making a movie at Agbo if Joe and I really care about it and really believe in the film. So everything or the television show. So everything that we're doing, we have a huge investment in on an emotional level, on a creative level, and we are participating in the process. That being said, we choose collaborators in the manner that Joe was just describing, in the way that Steven Soderbergh and George Clooney first collaborated with us when they produced our first film. There's a lot of trust that exists between us and the filmmakers we're collaborating with. And we choose people because we believe in them. So we give them a whole lot of autonomy in terms of how they're trying to, what story they're trying to tell and how they're trying to tell it. and we look at it as our job to support that process as best we can. While at the same time, we have a strong point of view on what these stories are and why they should be told. So it's definitely a very sort of engaged process, but at the same time, I think, with other studios, you're going to get a much more sort of artist-friendly and supportive approach with us, because that's really the reason. That's who we're betting on in our process. We bet on people we believe in, and we support their vision. And I think you can see it in the movies that we're making.
Joe, we're going to jump into Cherry now. I want to start with, so after Avengers Endgame, you guys could pretty much make any movie you wanted. You had that juice, because it's the biggest movie of all time, Avengers Endgame. What was it about Cherry that said, this is what we want to make as our follow-up?
Well, it was a very personal project for us. This is a book written by a gentleman named Nico Walker, who grew up in Cleveland, where we grew up. We grew up in neighborhoods very close to where we grew up. I even worked at the same restaurant that he worked at different times. So there was a close intersection between our lives and his life. His life happened to take a very different path than ours. He was a war veteran who had some issues with opioids and became a bank robber. He then wrote a fictional account of a similar character who grew up in Cleveland and had similar issues. We have had people very close to us die because of this crisis. We have people who are still struggling with recovery who are very close to us. So this was a very personal film for us to make. The value and the benefit of working on movies of Marvel scale and that commercial viability is that it allows you to use your brand capital to get difficult subject matter made. This was a very difficult movie. It's got very challenging subject matter. And I just have to say, Holland's performance in the film is exceptional. I mean, he absolutely shreds himself in the movie.
I am going to concur. Just being blunt, I got to see the movie to talk to you guys, and Tom is incredible. And the chemistry between Tom and, I want to say her name right, Kiara Bravo? Is that how you pronounce it? Sierra. I'm very sorry, Sierra. The chemistry between Tom and Sierra is fantastic. Can you sort of talk about, because it's their relationship in this movie, I mean, that's the backbone of the entire film. Anthony, can you sort of talk about their relationship and just casting them together?
Yes. And I do want to mention one thing about your last question in terms of like following up Endgame with Cherry. I mean, as you can imagine, on one level, it could be a very daunting proposition to like what movie we would direct next after Endgame, considering the sort of reception that film had and the sort of cultural impact the film had. And I think the way Joe and I found our way forward from that moment with Cherry was just a very simple emotional reaction. We responded so strongly to the material. It had such a visceral, immediate, it spoke to us so viscerally and so immediately that it really felt like this was a movie we needed to make right now, and we jumped into it. And at the heart of the movie is this relationship between two people. At the end of the movie, even though the film is about sort of coming of age, and it's a love story, and it's a war film, and it's a bank robbery film, and it's a drug addiction film. It's sort of it's a big melange of a lot of complicated life experiences, but the heart of it is the love story, and the heart of it is the relationship between the characters played by Tom and Sierra. And that was what we hung the entire emotional arc of the film on. For as complicated as things get, for as desperate as things get, the one thing that remains in the film and remains for the characters is connection that they have with one another, and how they can rely upon that to move forward despite sort of very daunting circumstances.
Joe, one of the things about Cherry, which I think is going to be which I think a lot of the people that know your work might not be expecting is, and I don't want to get too specific, but you've said it in a Vanity Fair piece, so I feel okay talking about it, is that there's essentially 6 chapters in the movie, and you've talked about what some of these chapters are, but the way you guys shoot it with the use of color and framing is so different than what people might be expecting from your Marvel work. Can you sort of talk about the aesthetic choices you made and the way you presented the material?
Yeah, it's always, you look at our careers, we make very personal choices. We pick projects that excite us, that Ant and I are excited to do together. We're a team. We've been a team for 25 years. So we have to find a way into the project. And, we collected comic books as kids, and we were very passionate about, big pop culture entertainment, but we're also very passionate about, smaller, more challenging stories. And we grew up on auteur 70s filmmakers just like everyone else, and who loves filmmaking. And, this is a movie that really embraces style and tone in very unique ways. And, the film is about his life cycle. It's about a 15-year life cycle. And it's broken into chapters, as you described, where each chapter is shot almost as if it were a different film, but they're all connected in a way. And so there's a gonzo element to it. But yes, there's magical realism in one chapter, and then absurdism, and then brutal realism, and then horror, and then, black humor, dark humor. So it really, it really covers a wide scope of experience, both for the character and for the audience. And each chapter, we made very distinct cinematic choices, from costume to performance to lenses to the style of camera work to the way that the camera moves to music. It's a very, hopefully it's not a jarring shift for the audience, but it does move and take you places that you're not expecting from chapter to chapter. And when you put it all together as a whole, hopefully you get a surprising and unique movie-going experience.
It just came out that this will be premiering in theaters in the end of February and on Apple TV in March. I think people are really going to enjoy this movie and Tom's performance, and I'm just going to say congrats. Let's move on to the next thing, which is Relic. For people that Relic got fantastic reviews, and obviously it hasn't been seen by a wide audience, but for people that have just heard of Relic, maybe, what can you say about it and why people should see it?
Well, it's an excellent film from another first-time filmmaker, Natalie Erica James, who made some incredible shorts that we saw. And, we were fortunate. Jake Gyllenhaal brought us this movie. So we're very fortunate to get to work on it with him. And it's, our favorite kind of filmmaking is our films that Trojan horse strong, modern, philosophical, social, thematic ideas into them while also entertaining you. So they feed your brain, they feed your soul, they feed your heart all at the same time. This is a very elegant horror film about dementia, and it's wrought and difficult to watch at times, and scary. And embraces all the aspects that we love about the genre, while also telling a very elegant, profound tale of a family of women, 3 generations of women, dealing with their grandmother losing her memory and sense of self.
When did you guys first hear? Obviously, when you make a movie, any movie, you're not exactly sure how well it's going to do. But Extraction, I believe, is either the highest viewed original Netflix movie of all time, or it's number 2. It's very, very high up. When did you guys find out that it was such a huge hit?
It was not long after it opened. Netflix tracks its own numbers in a way that the sort of outside Netflix industry people can't quite see, but we were getting strong indications from Netflix very early on that interest in the film was extremely high. And then when it finally premiered on Netflix, we were getting reports right away of how well it was doing. So we had a pretty good indication through the entire time that it was both highly anticipated, and then once it started playing, that it was playing extremely well. And it was, in fact, the most viewed Netflix film ever.
Sam Hargrave, the director, did such an amazing job with the movie, and especially with the action set pieces. Anthony, I'll do a follow-up with you. He's another first-time feature director that you guys took a chance on to make this movie. What was it about Sam that said, he can make this movie, and have you signed him for like a 5-picture deal?
Yeah, no, Sam is an extremely special person and an extremely special filmmaker. Joe and I have a long working relationship with him through our Marvel work. He started as Chris Evans' stunt double, sort of graduated to our stunt coordinator, second unit director, and we really believed in him as a creative voice, as a visionary, and there couldn't have been. He was the best person to deliver a film like this, Extraction. He's one of those people who can deliver action at a virtuoso level that very few people can. And we've been very fortunate to be able to collaborate with him through the years in that manner in our own films that we were directing. And it was our thrill to be able to support him in the director position on this movie. He's a really special talent. And yeah, we look forward to doing much more work with Sam and many more special films for sure.
Joe, this question is going to be for you. For people that don't realize, you've spoken in the past. I'm specifically going to ask you about the Extraction sequel, because obviously, huge hit, and I know you're working on it. You wrote the first one, and I know you're writing the sequel. In the past, you've talked about how the sequel could actually be a prequel featuring David Harbour's character and Chris Hemsworth's character. But you haven't actually said either way what you're making. So why not at CCXP World maybe tease the audience? Are we getting a prequel or are we getting a sequel?
I'm still not going to commit because I think it's more exciting to surprise people. But I will say this, we are working at building out a universe of films that could potentially explore some of the other characters from the first movie and some new characters and see the interaction, more historical interaction between the characters. So if you're interested in David Harbour's character, you just may get to see him in a future Extraction film.
So basically saying that David Harbour might be getting an Extraction movie with Chris Hemsworth cameoing in it. In the traditional sense of universe building, potentially, we're trying to find more interesting ways to tell these stories and to cross-pollinate them. We're big fans of just, again, forging new paths in narrative. Can we go backwards and forwards at the same time? Can things that happened in the past affect the movies that happen in the present? What are new ways to tell those stories? And can we see different points of view? Every antagonist is their protagonist in their own story. So can we see their point of view? How do they perceive the world? What makes them empathetic? And I think that's a compelling element to that Extraction universe. It is a global franchise telling global stories, and we'd like to diversify the point of view of those movies. Last question on Extraction. Do you have an idea when a sequel or a prequel might actually be in front of cameras?
Intention is to start rolling cameras on Extraction 2 sometime this fall. Chris is a busy guy, so we have to figure out a schedule. But that's the intent at the moment.
So fall of 2021.
That's right.
Got it. I'm almost out of time, and I'm not leaving you without talking about Gray Man, which is going to be your next movie that you're getting ready to film. It's going to be for Netflix. It's a huge Netflix movie. For people that aren't familiar with the material, what can you say, Anthony, what can you say about Gray Man?
Gray Man is a spy film. And I would say that for fans of The Winter Soldier, The Gray Man is similar in the sense that we're trying to embed it in very modern, current environment that we're facing on a global level in terms of spy networks and the CIA. And it centers around a character called the Gray Man, played by Ryan Gosling. Chris Evans is going to be appearing in the film as well as a co-lead, playing the lead antagonist. So it'd be fun to see Chris in the sort of opposite role of Captain America. And we're just trying to be very current with it in terms of speaking to issues that we feel like are sort of feeding global anxiety at the moment, and finding a way, like Joe was saying earlier, how do you Trojan horse really relevant issues into a very exciting, thrilling genre package. So for fans of action and the spy genre, it's going to really deliver on that way in a major way. And but at the same time, it has a lot of complex social issues that are unfolding right now, political issues.
Joe, can you talk about where and when you are going to be filming this movie?
We start shooting at the end of January here in Los Angeles, and then we have some work overseas in Europe after that in the spring.
How has the pandemic impacted the production of this movie? Was it originally maybe going to be more on location in certain places? How have you guys had to adjust the script or story based on the pandemic?
We have an incredible team, and Netflix has been really supportive and a very safe team. It hasn't impacted our locations shooting. I mean, this is a big global spy thriller, and its intent is, it's gonna hit a lot of different locations. And we're still gonna film in those locations. So we're excited about that because it's really important to the storytelling that we visit these different locations.
One of the things, I asked this as just so I love IMAX. I think the format is incredible. You guys have used IMAX on your movies in the past. I am curious with Netflix. Netflix movies tend to get a limited theatrical release, but then, it's mostly being watched at home all over the world. Have you had any discussions with Netflix about using IMAX cameras on something like Gray Man?
No, we haven't talked about using IMAX cameras on Gray Man, but we do have a lot of discussion with Netflix about what is possible on their format and new sort of versions and expressions of what they've been doing. It's hard to go into in detail because this is sort of like these are sort of preliminary talks that are being explored, but the ambition of Netflix is very large, and that sort of dovetails very really well with what Joe and I hope to do on a cinematic level, not just with Gray Man, but with other films as well. So it's hard to get into it on a detailed level, but there's a lot of innovative thought going on there.
Joe, you've talked about in the past, one of the things I think that Endgame did so well, and Infinity War, is you had a longer running time. And one of the things that happens with a longer running time is you get to explore smaller moments. And I think one of the problems with a 2-hour movie is when you introduce a character in the first act, that person's either going to turn out to be bad in the third act, or there's certain narrative structure things that happen in movies that we're all familiar with. And that's one of the problems with a 2-hour running time. I'm curious with Gray Man and with Netflix, one of the things Netflix has done is they've demonstrated that they're willing to release a 3-hour movie or a 3.5-hour movie with Irishman. And I'm wondering, have you guys had discussions with Netflix on Gray Man or other things where you want to push the boundaries of, the typical movie where maybe you want to make a 3-hour film or not just a 2-hour movie? Has that been something you guys have talked about?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's something we're exploring all the time. Every project that we tackle, we try to think of a new way to surprise people with our approach. And can we, crack a new aspect of storytelling or modern storytelling we agree that the 2-hour format is the most predictive format. Genres in particular are the most predictive because, there are concepts that are baked in that make them genre that, if you don't include them, you're not really working in that realm of filmmaking. So, what we're doing at Gray Man that's different, it's not going to be about running time. It's not going to be about the length of it, but we're not going to answer every question in the first movie. This is being conceived as a series of films, and again, potentially branching out, where we could follow other characters, but we're not going to answer every question in the movie. So you're going to finish the movie, have a complete story, but you're still going to have questions about the wider universe. And I think that's one way to break the model a little bit, is to not give the audience everything in one film. Don't have a closed-ended narrative, have an open-ended narrative that's a chapter in a book.
Do you envision that the follow-up movies would all be helmed by you guys, or is it one of these things where you might do one, but it could be other filmmakers tackling stuff in the Gray Man universe?
It could be other filmmakers. I mean, we love it. We love what we've been prepping. Love the cast, but we'd love to tell multiple stories, and schedule dependent. We might not be able to handle everything. So we'd love to bring new voices, and we also get excited about that. We like producing as much as we like directing because we like being inspired and surprised by other filmmakers. We like collaborating because Anthony and I have been doing it our entire lives. So we're not afraid of collaboration. We embrace it, and it's something that excites us because you can get locked into ideas as a filmmaker, and perhaps the most exciting part of our entire careers is when we were working as executive producers in television, and directors were constantly coming in to direct episodes of TV shows that we were producing, like Community. And you so rarely get to interact with other directors. You just get inspired by the way that they work. It could be completely different than the way that you work. There's no guidebook to the craft of directing. Everyone kind of develops their own process based on life experience. So it's an exciting aspect of filmmaking, is when we get an opportunity to work very closely with other directors.
My last question is going to go to Anthony. Anthony, when I spoke to you guys, I forget when, you both talked about how you had 3 films that you wanted to make back to back to back. And I'm curious if that is still the plan. We still know what is after Gray Man. I mean, do you sort of have that figured out and you just haven't announced it yet? What is the plan?
Yeah, we don't have it figured out in the sense that we can announce it yet. There still is a bit of a development process left in order to make those movies real. But yeah, our directing appetite is enormous. We love directing. We're in a great place right now in our careers, and we have amazing collaborators. Our partners at Agbo are Chris Marcus and Steve McFeely, who we made all those Marvel movies with, and we've got some really special films that we've been developing together that, again, we're not ready to announce yet, but hopefully in the next few months we may be able to, and yeah, they'll be coming right after Gray Man.
I could ask you guys a million other questions, but I'm just going to say thank you for your time. And obviously, before we end, I just want to give a huge thank you to our friends at Omelette and everyone at CCXP that is watching around the world for tuning in to CCXP Worlds, and also to Joe and Anthony Russo for giving us some of their valuable time.
Thank you. This was awesome.
So happy.
You guys have a fantastic night, and everyone in Brazil, obrigado.